This can't be done.
Yes, it can. Just have to go deep enough.
That sums it up right there. It's like you got Pete Buttigieg, who's not qualified to be in his position and was only put there because of DEI and because he's gay, who calls the bridge racist.
Yeah, as a distraction tactic.
Distracting from his lack of experience and lack of knowledge on the sector, and they're giving all the money away to people from other countries, whether those are illegal immigrants that have snuck into our country, or whether it's Ukraine or Israel. It's like, obviously.
Hey everybody, welcome back to our channel. It's a meta watch party.
Yes, get it.
All right, today we are about to get meta as always. Let's see how many layers. You are gonna watch us. That's one or two. That's you watch us. Watch Melanie King and one of our favorite friends of the channel, and she is going to watch the situation play out in Baltimore with this bridge falling down. She'll probably watch a couple of news sources herself, so we might be 5-6 levels meta at that point.
It's real meta.
Whew, mega meta. All right, let's check it out.
Hey guys, it's your girl Melanie, and as we know, tragically, the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, there was an accident involving a cargo ship headed to Singapore, leaving out of the port in
that's an interesting
Baltimore.
detail
Now,
we didn't get yesterday.
Fun fact about me, I am from the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and I'm currently here now. So I grew up in Maryland, and I have gone over that bridge many, many times. You know, Baltimore in general, and I would say the East Coast in general, is just, it's a hellhole in terms of the infrastructure, the roads, the potholes. It is really bad, especially when I compare it to other parts of the country. It is just not holding up. And in Baltimore in particular, it's a really bad area. Baltimore, I think it's famous for a lot of things. I think it came on the map technically when the show The Wire from HBO came out.
Yes.
And a lot of what you saw depicted in Baltimore, that's what Baltimore is. People try to, say, oh, that's not true and Baltimore's great. No, if you go there now, it's still a lot of boarded up houses, crackheads on the street. The government is known, or the people who run the city, as being
where are there not crackheads?
There's been a lot of
That's where I want to go.
Throughout the years. It is just not a great place. Regardless of that, I am not focusing on the tragedy itself, on what happens to the actual victims here. Of course, we know our hearts go out to them, but I need to report things as they come out and investigate this and hold.
If I were a crackhead, I would rather be in Turks and Caicos.
I did a video earlier talking about Pete. I cannot say his name. Pete Buttigieg. I like to just call him
Pete Buttigieg.
Who we know he's a Secretary of Transportation. He's a secretary. He's in the Biden administration where he's supposed to be taking care of our infrastructure. And one of the things they try to say is they came out with was that the bridge was up to code. But my oh my, we have got to really investigate what these people say. In part of my investigation, I went back and looked at footage of him actually blaming infrastructure problems on racism.
Tell him, Buttigieg.
Underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or would have been, in New York was designed too low for it to pass by. But that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices.
Saying that racism is the crutch of what is going on and why underpass was too low.
He's like, I need support. Racism.
Rather than him take accountability.
It's like, I need support. LGBTQ.
That we're having. But when they said that the bridge was up to code, look at this. Baltimore Bridge was up to code, but rules predate age of supersized ships.
So it's not up to code.
This is why you have to hold.
It's up to code, but the code's not up to code. Up to date, right?
We didn't do anything, and all these things. But your code is outdated. Your code does not keep up with technology with what is going on today. And we see this everywhere. The government is layered in bureaucracy.
You know, and this brings up a good point. When I saw the video the first time, it looked to me, and I don't know, I guess it was just the vantage point, that the cargo ship was way too tall to even pass under the bridge, which I'm sure it wasn't, but it looked humongous. Like,
Yeah, I mean, the ship was huge. It was so big that when it tapped that pillar, everything crumbled to
right.
pieces.
The
Allegedly.
whole bridge came falling down.
Because, I mean, it looked like it came down too easily to me.
Yeah.
Layers and layers and layers of people to just waste money.
Like a bridge of cards.
They rather would
Yeah,
fund
like a
illegal
strong gust of
immigrants
wind would
than
have did the
actually
same thing.
put money back into this country.
should have made it out of
Put it
bricks.
into our schools or our teachers or anything else. No, they want to defund the police so they can give money to illegal immigrants, so they can fund wars,
Right.
and take away from Americans. Well, we're not protected by the government right now. The elites, the powers that be, are there to enrich themselves. Most of these politicians are millionaires, and they become millionaires after they go into office. So let's get into this, because I want to keep digging into this, regardless of what they have to say. We the people need to research these things for ourselves and find out what is really going on, because they're going to continue to lie to us.
Absolutely.
So the National Transportation Safety Board is dispatching investigators, but governor said Francis Scott Key Bridge was sound. So the governor
it was
here,
not.
you know, it is the governor of Maryland.
It wasn't safe.
Actually, let me show you him. So this is Governor Westmore. He is a Democrat, and here, and so of course he is going to try to protect
that political
Democratic
smile is so obnoxious.
He has ambitions of going, you know, further than where he is in the state of Maryland. But let's continue with the story. I just wanted to show you who he is, and I haven't investigated him. I don't have any dirt or anything on him, but just know he most of these politicians are CYA. They want to cover themselves and try to say, "Oh, we've done everything right. There's no problem here. Stop looking over here." And they mix these words up. But this is politician speak, basically. The collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore has revived scrutiny, not just of this specific structure, but also the overall health of bridges across the U.S.
Definitely.
Many of which are considered to be in poor condition.
Clearly.
It's like, especially on the East Coast, it's insane. It's so far unclear whether the downfall of the bridge, which was hit by a large container ship and crumpled into the Patapsco.
That's the word they use for paper.
From here, but never
right, exactly.
Early on Tuesday morning was down to any fault in the structure itself.
What's crazy is that for the most part, a lot of these bridges require tolls to go across.
Mm-hmm.
What's the toll for?
Right.
Like making people pay money every time they cross the bridge, but the bridge hasn't been updated in 100 years?
Yeah.
Where's the toll money going?
That's a big toll account.
Like, what's it for?
Years.
Is it, if it's not for fixing a bridge, what's it for?
Paying salaries of toll workers?
Corruption is out of control.
Yeah.
So it was unclear if it was the structure itself. Officials have said the ship issued a mayday as it went off course and seemed to lose power. This ship just pulled out of the port, guys, and was headed to Singapore. So no inspections were done. It just suddenly lost power. Like, this wasn't out at sea for a while. It wasn't, it was in the port. It was inspected. These things have to be inspected while it's...
What happens if a ship loses power in the middle of the ocean? Yikes.
No idea. I never even thought of that as a possibility.
Right? Like, sheesh. Better for the ship to lose power there.
Yeah. And it's like nobody charged it? Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
And suddenly it just lost power randomly? Is that what you're telling me? I don't know. That's just a little hard to believe right now. The National Transportation Safety Board is dispatching a team to investigate the disastrous collapse, which has left 6 people still unaccounted for. Westmore, Maryland's governor, has said the bridge was fully up to code. Guys, the bridge was fully up to code, while some experts have pointed out that the span completed in 1977, was conceived before an age of supersized container ships. 1977, guys. Do you guys understand that?
Yeah, that's almost
1977.
50 years ago.
So this is a bridge that's up to code that's old. Andrew Barr, an expert in civil and structural engineering at the University of Sheffield, said that the video doesn't show any obvious structural deficiencies with the bridge, but it will not have been designed to survive a head-on collision with such a large vessel. Barr added that the Francis Scott Key Bridge did not appear to have additional protective infrastructure to buffer it from ship strikes, which have become more risky as the size and design of cargo vessels has changed over the years. In the last decade alone, the average capacity of container ships has increased by 50% in the last year alone.
Decade.
Yeah.
So there was no additional buffers that have been added to account for these things. As we know, Pete Booty, he's focused on racism and wokeness. That's what our administration now wants to fight. They also, again, illegal immigration. They want to make sure women can delete their babies. They want to make sure they fund wars that we shouldn't be in. They don't want to have money in Americans' hands. They want to keep funding the elite. We know it is all to enrich themselves and to keep funding the elite, putting money in their own pockets.
Message.
Meanwhile, our entire country is falling apart. Meanwhile, things like this are happening, which is probably something simple. If things were up to a new code, if they kept things up to date and weren't layered in bureaucracy, we could get things like this done. But I digress. Let's continue. But the spectacular collapse has again highlighted concerns about the overall state of U.S. bridges.
Definitely.
Which more than a third of them in need, oh wow, I did not know this, which more than a third of them in need of repair. According to the American Road and Transportation Builders Association, the state of U.S. bridges has slowly improved in recent years, the association said, but more than 43,000 are still considered to be in poor condition
43,000.
and classified as structurally deficient, risking
astronomical
potential
number.
collapse in the future. You know, it reminds me of the border. You know, nothing's their fault. They can't build the wall. They can't do this. They can't do that. Meanwhile, we see when we leave it to these elites and these corrupt politicians to do things, this is what we get.
I'm thinking about how many Americans would be employed by fixing 43,000 bridges.
Absolutely.
Or it's like, oh, we can't find any jobs. Oh, we want to increase the economy.
Right, they have to create jobs.
Right, like we got to create jobs so that we can fix the economy. Let's start by fixing these bridges. Yeah. There's 43,000 of them. If you employ 100 people to fix each bridge, which is a small amount of people, that's another
4.3 million jobs.
Right, like simple, right there, just on the bridges. And 100 is small, so let's say it's 1,000 people, right? That's 43 million jobs. Like, come on, and that's just the bridges. Exactly.
So meta.
Like, there's roads, there's dams, there's tunnels, there's canals.
Right, the dams, like you were talking about recently.
It's just infrastructure. That's easy, and not only does it give jobs to Americans, it increases their quality of life because they are providing for their families, but it overall increases everybody's quality of life because people are safer and we can like use the infrastructure to do our daily business.
Right.
It's a no-brainer, but they like clearly don't care about us. Michael Jackson said it. Like, they really don't care about us. And they're going to just keep like pretending and like stealing our money through tolls and through taxes and putting it directly in their pockets and or sending it to other countries, primarily two of them, like Ukraine and Israel.
Yeah. I'm talking about they need to fix their cities up.
In Israel, they got free healthcare.
Well, sounds like we could use some funding from them.
Right? They need to send us bread. We giving them all types of stuff. Like, that's the thing, right? It's like, why is it only one-sided? Like, we could send all of them bread, but they can't send us anything? Like, we get nothing from them.
Right? Like, I think we get like pierogies from Ukraine.
Right? Like, the vast majority of Americans cannot tell you where Ukraine is, let alone probably never even heard of it before last year.
Yeah.
And that's primarily because like Americans aren't very informed, but that's another reason to spend money on our education system
Right.
and not send it to Ukraine.
So simple.
It's like, duh.
Let's continue. This disaster reveals how exposed America's critical infrastructure is to sudden and devastating accidents, as well as intentional destruction, said Rick Geets, infrastructure policy expert and director of Cornell University Infrastructure Policy Program. Improved resilience should be on everyone's mind as aging infrastructure is rebuilt. Enhanced protection against ship bridge collisions will certainly become more salient. Like, now we see this is another way to show how vulnerable we are here. While they're even letting ISIS members through the southern border, things like that, we don't know who is in this country. They say that the electricity went out. Is this true? Could this been a planned thing? Could this be something that detonated? We don't know. Something is not making sense. Who is on this ship? Who are these people that are doing the cargo? Was it a crew member? Did somebody cut the electricity? Was this a planned attack? There's always these different layers that can keep happening in the U.S. Again, they want to fight. They want to fight identity politics. That's their real enemy, not their enemy that's out there. Geets,
the
whatever,
bridge
said
does
the
look
Baltimore
black at night.
disaster should be viewed as an opportunity to rebuild American
But white in the
infrastructure
daytime.
in a
What did that
smart
tell
way,
you?
which includes
Trans.
new materials and designs to reduce the risk of future accidents, including sensors embedded in the bridge that communicate in real time with approaching ships.
The name of the ship is
Seems
Dolly.
basic, right? The perilous state of American bridges was singled out by the Biden administration as a motivator for the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure law signed by the U.S. president in 2021. The bill includes $110 billion to upgrade roads and bridges, with Biden recently visiting a deteriorating bridge in Wisconsin to tout its repair via the funding. The port in the Baltimore port, the Baltimore Harbor over there, it is responsible for $80 billion worth of goods. I did a video on this earlier. Every day that port is down, we're losing. It is $321 million in losses.
Every day. Wow.
I repeat, $80 billion a year, $321 million a day. On top of that, guys, what we're looking at with this is for 13 years in a row, this is the number one port for cars. So we're going to see the auto industry get hit hard. This is also a cruise port. There are several.
It'll be a bloodbath.
What's crazy is that there's already a supply chain issue for automobiles. Like, they can't get, certain parts for cars, and cars are taking crazy long to get to people who want to buy them. This is about to just exacerbate that to a whole new level.
And they can't sell the cars they have already made.
Right.
Nobody wants them.
It's wild. They're trying to push these electric cars that nobody wants.
Campaign trail, which Sleepy Joe is doing once again. And all of these politicians are corrupt. But we're talking about this current administration that is just basically there, again, to enrich themselves. For decades, people talked about replacing this bridge, but it never got done until today. I know I read that too fast. Biden said in a January event, this bridge is important. Okay, I'm not going to do it. This bridge is important, but the story we're writing is much bigger than that. He picked out one bridge just to show we're doing something over here in Wisconsin. Meanwhile, this is happening over here. A certain amount of risk will remain for the foreseeable future, however. Each day, around 167 million trips are taken across structurally deficient bridges in the U.S.
Let's check out these comments.
For sure.
Oh, somebody with construction experience. This is B-Man, Uj, 7U. As a construction superintendent and contractor that has completed hundreds of jobs, I have more experience in my pinky finger than Pete has in his whole career. Yeah, right, because Pete Buttigieg was the mayor of a small town.
Yeah.
Okay. When something goes wrong on one of my jobs, I don't blame someone else. I solve the problem. Apparently, no one in our current administration has ever heard the phrase, the buck stops here.
Yeah, this is exactly the problem. Pete equals DEI appointment, diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? They're like, oh, let's hire Pete Buttigieg, like, because he's gay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it's like, why not hire an engineer
Yes.
or a construction superintendent?
Right. Or even one of the people interviewed for this article was an expert in infrastructure. Anybody.
Right, like Pete Buttigieg has no clue about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, what's his background? Because he was in the military and then the mayor.
right.
Like, how does that lead to being in charge of transportation for an entire nation?
He does know a bit about stinky tunnels.
Ba-dum-tsh.
Get him out of here.
Yeah, he's fired. All right, now somebody is gonna, this anonymous user wants to challenge the person who was a construction superintendent. And they said, okay, Mr. Construction Superintendent.
Oh my God.
Do you know what type of engineer is used to prevent ship strikes onto bridges? This is a pop quiz?
And it's like,
I don't think that was the point, right? He
Nope.
was just saying, this is the industry I work in. Let's revisit this comment. This is the industry I work in. I have completed hundreds of jobs, in my career. If something happens, I have to be accountable for that, not shift the blame onto somebody else. And more essentially, it needs to be repaired because we're talking about construction. Like, it's not an insignificant project.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm no engineer, but I can imagine a way to build something around each one of those pillars that would either absorb some of the impact or divert a ship that has gone off course away from actually smashing the pillar.
Right.
It's like, what are we talking about? People, that's why it's like a lot of these people got to be bots.
Mm-hmm.
Give them a thumbs down. What a loser.
It's just it's such an unproductive response.
It's a
like
stupid
what does it have
response,
to do
too.
with anything? Do you know what type of engineer is used to prevent ship strikes onto bridges?
Look it up.
Right? He could have just copied and pasted this whole question into ChatGPT.
Yeah, but there's definitely some type of engineer who could think about how to prevent ship strikes onto bridges.
I think structural engineer.
Somebody,
that would be my best guess.
It's not that difficult. I'm not an engineer, and I can think of several ways to prevent that.
Right, and I think this is what Nunya, last name, had to say. I thought barriers, rebutments to prevent this was standard, like on the Golden State Bridge and on the rivers to stop barges from tailing out bridges. It's federal. Standards for collision defenses. Zero standards for collision defenses. Yeah, you would think that there were some standard preventative measures to take.
They have them on the highway. They have those trash cans full of sand so that people don't smash right into the barrier on the exit ramp. It's like, that's a very simple solution to a very serious problem. They could do something similar to that.
Yep. Right, because even we were seeing recently that those railings, the guardrails that are on like cliffs, things like that, that those stop cars, like they're designed to stop cars from going through. I thought it was more just like, a little, just something to
like divert.
Yeah, but yeah, because they were exposing how some new vehicle could not be stopped by
those electric
those
vehicles
guardrails.
because they weigh too much.
So yeah, even that. And that's just a little simple steel structure. Okay, somebody responded to none your last name and said, maybe it's code now, but the two major bridge collapses that I remember have been bridges that didn't have them.
It's that same user that's trolling.
And it's like, but why don't they have them? Why don't they have any protections in place? Especially, now that we're learning that the port of Baltimore is one of the most major ports in the entire country. They should have all types of protections in place.
It looks like the original engineer way back in.
Okay.
And said, yes, that is standard, but as the size of container ships have increased, they need to be upgraded. The ship appears to have had a mechanical function, and no one can plan for all possible accidents. Considering the huge financial cost of shutting down a port, upgrades would most likely have been cost effective.
Right.
Duh.
Instead of $300 and something million every day. Brian B 4501 has a question. What does the administration have to do with a malfunctioning foreign ship?
What?
I didn't hear that it was a foreign ship.
But so what though? It's like the ship hit the bridge, and the administration controls the bridges. Somebody responded to him and said, "Are you serious? It's a bridge, transportation that was holding a section of an interstate, federal transportation, now sunk and blocking one of the busiest product ports in the USA, international transportation, which is under the federal jurisdiction. There are foreign ships and exportation products trapped in the port. There are hundreds of international transport ships scheduled over the next few days that now have to find another port. That's under federal jurisdiction too. The ship only matters in this because they made the bridge fall down. Plus, the feds will want to check if the company was negligent or not. And that's federal because it's a Singaporean company."
Yeah. Thank you, NF Caps, for that clarification. I wonder what that other user was thinking, like, who should be responsible then, since the foreign ship? Singapore? Singapore should fix the bridges in Baltimore?
Right.
They probably would do a better job.
They definitely would. Maybe we should call them. No money for roads. It's more important to give illegal invaders free everything.
Nick Long 9985.
But yeah, it's like, that sums it up right there. It's like, you got Pete Buttigieg, who's not qualified to be in his position and was only put there because of DEI and because he's gay, who calls the bridge racist.
Yeah, as a distraction tactic.
Distracting from his lack of experience and lack of knowledge on the sector. And they're giving all the money away to people from other countries, whether those are illegal immigrants that have snuck into our country or whether it's Ukraine or Israel. It's like, obviously.
Yeah. And then anybody who's saying, hey, let's put America first is a
racist extremist, right-wing extremist.
Yeah.
And these idiots keep voting for these Democrats because they coddle up to them over race or LGBTQ issues. It's like, come on, y'all. Don't y'all care about the country? It's like, is it just that easy to sway their opinion just by being like, you don't vote for me, you ain't black. It's like, or just being like, oh, I love black people. Look at me, I'm at a black church. But meanwhile, none of the policies actually are helping anybody that considers themselves to be black or anybody else that's American for that matter.
Right.
It's like, people got to get with it. Like, if you're going to vote, then you need to get smart about politics. If you're not going to get smart about politics and you're just going to vote Democrat down the line because your mother and grandmother did the same thing, then just don't vote.
Don't vote.
Stay home.
Yes. Just creating more problems for your children and your grandchildren who now have to pay for this.
For real.
And we didn't have anything to do with this.
Like, obviously uninformed. Like, you're going to go vote for something that you don't know about. Like, You wouldn't go vote in a Mexican election. You don't
Mm,
know any of those people. You don't speak the language. Don't know anything. It's the same thing. It's like, I'm gonna vote for this election just because you live in the state. Like, oh, if you don't know who's running, if you don't know what they stand for, if you don't know their policies that they intend to implement, if you don't know who their backers are and who's actually funding them, then don't vote.
yeah. If you can't read, don't vote. That's like we went to the one of the elections, and we witnessed an older woman who was not able to read for whatever reason. I don't know if it was a vision problem or whatnot, but there was somebody there walking her through the ballot, and it set off a lot of alarm bells for me because I've long heard people say that having literacy tests or poll tests is discriminatory. But when you really observe what's happening and when you take the time to read a ballot yourself and, you know, uh, take that information and comprehend it, to figure out what, and like comb through the very complex language that's used on these ballots to figure out whether you should say yes or no for this proposition or that proposition. If you don't have very strong literacy skills, you shouldn't be in there doing that, because there's no telling what that poll worker's literacy skills were either. Like, how is she explaining these propositions to this woman who now has to make a decision?
Mm-hmm.
These are really important decisions.
It's true. Then you got questionable weirdos like Diddy that are like heading up the campaign to get out and vote. It's like, it's all a sham and a ruse. And it's like, if you don't really know what you're doing, just stay at home.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're just like that attached to party lines because you're like 90 years old and you like are not interested in new policies or anything,
Right.
then don't vote, because
Please
you're
stop.
about to pass away anyway. And it's like,
Yes.
why are you going to vote for things that matter to those of us who have to live with the ramifications for the next several decades when it doesn't even pertain to you? You
And
just want to
yeah.
go vote just because like somebody says something nice about black people one day.
Right. Or they say sorry for 50 years of bad policies.
Like, come on now.
Too, with the older people who insist on voting, despite, like, without realizing that things that they're voting for really don't impact them as directly as they impact their offspring, is that those people, we witnessed them be so closed off to receiving information from the people, from their offspring, who are impacted by these decisions. We have witnessed just trying to have conversations with our older relatives and provide them information that we know they don't have, about um, different propositions and policies and politicians and what they stand for. And they are yelling at us to, like, be quiet. Like, they actually don't want the information. It's just frustrating to, like, witness people be so informed and insist on virtue signaling anyway, right? They're like, I saw a message from one of my relatives to another relative that was encouraging her to vote because our people, they fought for us to have the right to vote. And what was so interesting about the message was that she was encouraging my cousin to vote Democrat down ballot for the reason that Democrats want to provide birth control to women. And I read that message so many times and I was like, so wait, we should vote for every Democrat, no matter who they are, no matter what they stand for, because Democrats have associated themselves with birth control? This is a 70-year-old woman. What does she care about birth control? What do we care about birth control? We want to have babies. Like, Why would that lead our why would that take precedence in how we approach voting for potentially hundreds of elected officials? Birth control? That's the only thing we care about? Look at this bridge brings up several pertinent political issues that affect us all more than birth control. And it's wild, but it really gives you a look into how people are thinking about, you know, voting and politics. It's very, very unsophisticated.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And selfish.
Yes.
But shout out to Melanie King.
Always. Thank you, Melanie.
Another good one. She's another one that holds people accountable.
No matter what they look like or whether they have mammary glands.
For real. It keeps it real. We need more people like that.
Absolutely.
So we're going to do what we do best. Give her a thumbs up.
Ding.
She's a friend of the channel. We definitely subscribe. So definitely go to Melanie King's channel and give her a subscribe. And while you're in the business of subscribing and liking, give us a like and subscribe.
Yeah, so we can keep bringing you more content like this and just get mo meta, mo better. It's the Meta Watch Party.